Finding a job as a software engineer has never been as hard in the last 20 years as it is right now. But the reason isn't AI, as a lot of people seem to think. It's more about the current economic situation and legal environment. So I believe that this isn't forever and things will get easier later on. But in the meanwhile, a lot of you are currently looking for jobs. And many of you are making mistakes that are totally avoidable. So let's talk about how to get hired in 2024 as a software engineer. The question I would be asking you if you are speaking in person is how far are you getting in the process? Because getting a job is a multi-step process, right? You first need to apply for the job, then you get through a number of interviews, and then eventually you will get hired. But fixing a problem in a step where you are already making good progress isn't going to help you if the problem is later on in the process or even earlier in the process. So it is crucial to know how far you are getting in this process. Let me know in the comments. But there are a couple of mistakes that I see more often. So here are the top 5 mistakes when searching for a job as a developer. So this first mistake is so bad it can break your chances at every step of the process and even after you got hired. Applying for the job should not be your first step, because in this current situation when companies have a lot of options to hire different people, they are looking for the person who would be interested in that particular role. So your first step should be to find roles that inspire you, where the mission is something that you are interested in yourself. For example, if you are interested in music, find companies that are adjacent to the music industry. Or if you care about global warming, find a company that is working towards a sustainable future. If you are interviewing for a position that you care about, you have a much better chance of getting that position because you will look authentic. So here is a question for you. Who would you hire? A random person from the street or someone you already know and respect? My guess is that you probably picked the second option. And of course, companies do hire people from outside their professional networks. But if you are inside a professional network, then you have a much better chance. Search LinkedIn for people working at that company and try and engage with them. Try to find out why they work there, if they enjoy working there, what are the values of the company, what it feels like working at that company. And if you find out that one of your friends are working there, invite them for a drink and find out as much as you can from what's going on inside the company. This is important for 2 reasons. You want to make sure that you are applying for a job that you will enjoy for years to come. And 2, you want to know as much about the company culture as you can, because by knowing what's important for people at that company, you will be able to answer the questions during the interview much better. You will know what to focus on. Basically, just make sure that you interact with people from that company beforehand. And ideally, if you have a friend, ask them to refer you. The third mistake is focusing too much on the FAANG companies. That is Facebook, Amazon, Apple, Netflix, and Google. These companies used to have great employer branding, and people really wanted to work there, and they paid well. But recently, this has changed. On one hand, these companies are not really hiring anymore. They are mostly laying people off instead. And also, a large part of that employer branding came from the fact that they had nice offices. But these days, most people prefer working from home to having nice amenities at the office. And working at these companies isn't helping your career as much as you think. On the other hand, a lot of small companies are hiring, and these companies can be much nicer places to work. So instead of worrying about getting into one of these large companies, focus on finding the small companies that have inspiring visions for you and focus on finding a role there. It is very important to make a good first impression, but focusing too much on this can become a problem, because you may end up coming up with a set of expectations that are not really there. On the other hand, you will try to fit those expectations, even if fitting those expectations would make you feel miserable on the long term. And here's the thing, if you're not authentic about what you are, what you stand for, it's gonna show during the interview process, and no one wants to hire someone inauthentic. So why it is important to make a good first impression in the sense of being polite, it is also important to stay authentic to yourself. And I understand that you might be thinking any job would be better than none at all, but believe me when I say that an inauthentic candidate is way less likely to get hired. And even if you get hired, you are way more likely to either get fired soon or leave the job yourself. And finally, the last mistake is focusing too much on just getting hired and not on building your own product. So here's the thing, while you're unemployed, you don't want to waste your time with lead code exercises. You want to grow as an engineer. And the best way to grow as an engineer is building your own product. There are basically two advantages. The more obvious one is that if that product actually becomes successful, you don't even have to look for a job anymore. The second reason it is important is that when you go for an interview and they ask you what have you been up to lately, you could actually say that, hey, I started building this. And by that, you are communicating that you are someone ambitious, you are someone who isn't just in it for the money. You actually care about software engineering. You actually care about good products. So these were my thoughts. Do you agree? Or maybe you disagree? Leave a comment below. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and watch this next video here.